Oh, so you want to start an Egyptian cult? We're here to help. Yeah, what's going on, party people in the place to be? I go by the name of the BK Apologist, transmitting all the way live. New York is the city, Brooklyn is the borough. What's good? What's popping? Glad to see everybody here. Of course, we got to say what's up to the party people in the chat. We got the indelible, the incredible Nate 2D2, and we got Wawo coming from all the way down under. And as always, if you have not yet already, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell 20 more friends that I'm here, and we're going to get into some shenanigans pretty soon. And if you like the shenanigans that we get involved with, please show your appreciation with the PayPal that's tagged on the top of the chat. Or if you'd like to be a supporter of BK, you could become a patron. You get an assortment of goodies to enhance your personal Bible study. And of course, if I'm talking about shenanigans, you already know who I have with me on this channel. And of course, it's my good friend, Dr. David Falk. What's going on, Dr. Falk?
It's going fantastic. How are you doing?
We're here, man, just dealing with the heat. It's finally going to calm down in New York. It's going to be, I think, the 70s for the rest of the week. So looking forward to that.
We're still in the high 80s here.
Yeah, it's trash. It's trash. Those who are familiar with my channel, you know I've had Dr. Falk here more than a few times. And I'm sure a lot of people wish that didn't happen, but it's going to keep happening anyway. So the reason why I have him here in particular, he is doing this amazing series on his channel. If you have not subscribed, please do so. If someone could put the link to his channel on the chat, I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm saying that to Nate. Nate's usually good with the links. And he's doing a series about, how does one start an Egyptian cult? And he's going through this painstaking process of all the ingredients one would need if you're really going to make an honest attempt at an authentic, comedic religion. And of course, you would need a temple for that, but he's giving you how much it costs, the things that you need to look for. It's very well detailed. And when I saw that, it definitely piqued my interest because, as Dr. Falk knows, I am a urban apologist, right? So I defend the faith against critiques and attacks going at Christianity that usually targets Black and brown people, right? And one of the arguments that we always hear is that, well, you shouldn't be a Christian because that's the white man's religion. It's the oppressor's religion, right? And you need to come back to your ancestral religion. And of course, what they mean is Egypt, even though, there's a whole continent called Africa that has
kind of big,
with various belief systems. But they usually want to focus on Egypt, right? Which is fine. So I said, okay. So if you really want to leave Christianity and Jesus and the church and actually go and be a practitioner of actual Kemet spirituality, you know what? Let me help you out.
Yeah.
So we're going to actually do a quick synopsis of what it would take for you to actually be an actual practitioner. And the people that are telling you that they are practitioners, well, we're going to see if they do what it takes as well. So, Dr. Falk, let's start at the beginning. Like, what would someone need? Well, first of all, how complex is it for someone in today's day and age to actually do an authentic temple experience?
It's incredibly complicated. And frankly, it was complicated back then too. It's always been complicated. And that's because the demands of the gods of Egypt are so high. Okay, they demand a certain amount of loyalty. They demand a certain amount of wealth. They demand a certain amount of comfort. They want to make sure that their sacred space is ideal for them.
Now, these people, when they talk about the Neter or Netaru, right, the gods, they believe
Nature.
that the Neter, right? They
Nature.
believe, say how I say it?
Nature.
Neter.
Okay, say this. Catcher.
Catcher.
Nature.
Neter.
There you go.
Neter. Okay.
I know the conscious community butchers that too.
So I've been hanging.
I'd expect them to know that. I don't expect you to know that.
Right. So they believe that these guys exist. They're not principles.
Oh, the ancient Egyptians
Right.
were very clear about this. Okay, they believed that these were not just they were aspects of nature, but they were also real individuals.
Okay.
Real persons. They were both.
Okay.
Okay?
Cool.
So they had conscious thought and they had will. So the god of the Nile, let's just take the god of the Nile, the god Happy. Happy was both the water that coursed down the Nile and a person who had a will. And he had a will that could assert a good coming in your favor or a bad coming against you. And if he gave you good coming, he fertilized your land and gave you a high water level and produced a bumper crop for you. If he gave you a bad coming, he came down with torrential force that destroyed homes, that tore up trees, that carried dead oxen down the river.
Wow. Okay.
So he had a will.
Because
And all the gods of Egypt were like this.
Okay.
They were both aspects of nature and persons.
Okay. Cool. Because of course, our good friends over there, like to say that it's not. They didn't worship actual gods. That it was just oxygen and hydrogen and
Nonsense.
Pretty much. So
Yeah, it's nonsense. Yeah, because they believed that the spirits of these gods inhabited the idols.
Right. That's why they had to do the opening of the way. Right.
Yeah, they had to do the opening of the mouth ceremony for the spirit of the god to enter into the mouth, because spirit comes in and out of your mouth,
right?
Just like you breathe air. You're breathing your spirit in, you're breathing your spirit out, etc., etc. Right. So they believed that when they worshipped these idols, that those idols were the flesh and bone of the gods, and their spirits would come in and enter these proxy bodies.
Right.
So to say that they're just oxygen or hydrogen or some intangible element of
quantum physics, I've heard of
quantum physics, is modernist claptrap.
Very good.
It's nothing that would have been completely alien to the Egyptian mind.
And of course, we don't want to do that, right? We want to know what the original, right, practitioners believed. And one of the things that you brought up in your video series is that they would need, if you're going to do a temple proper, is I think is it a temenos?
The temenos, yes.
Yes. Can you tell us exactly what that is, sir?
Okay. A temenos is essentially a boundary around your property. Okay. So whenever you create a temple precinct, basically the space where you're going to your property, you need a temenos or a demarcation to separate what is temple space and what is not temple space. And this served both the two purposes. One, it reminded everyone on the inside, hey, you're in a temple, behave yourself. And it reminded people on the outside, hey, you're outside a temple, you can't come in unless you've done the proper rituals to prepare yourself to come in.
Right. And actually I have a photo here of some of the ruins of a temenos. right, of the Egyptian gods at, how you say it? Is that Prenin?
Brienne.
Brienne. And there's a slide that I took from you. I hope you don't mind.
Okay. Now, the temenos is not visible here.
Okay. This is inside. This will be inside.
This would be the temple itself.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the temple itself. Outside of that, and some distance away would be the temenos.
Right.
Okay, because inside the temenos is not only your temple, it's also other buildings too.
Right.
Like your bakery, your slaughterhouse, maybe some rest shrines, or when barks go on procession. There's other features to a temple property that go beyond just the temple itself.
But I would need all those things even before I go into the temple if I'm going to be an actual practitioner.
Oh, yeah.
I would need all those things, right? Okay.
You might not need the rest shrine depending on whether or not you go on procession. You should go on procession. If you're a dutiful practitioner of the Egyptian religion, procession is a part of what you do. Because how else are the common people supposed to interface with the gods?
Right. Now,
Because
yeah, I'm sorry.
Because the gods don't just listen to you. The gods of Egypt don't just listen to you. They pretty much ignore you if you don't approach them the right way. And you couldn't just pray to a god. That's not Egyptian religion. That's Judaism. That's Christianity. That's not Egyptian religion. You have to use a device so the god can hear you. So the god can inhabit that device so it can hear you. So when ancient people went to pray to a temple, because they weren't allowed into a temple, this is not a church. Common people aren't allowed inside. They entered onto the temenos property, and they can go to the outside of the wall of the temple, and carved in the walls would be these ears. And the god would hear the people who are praying through the ear carvings.
Oh, wow.
And the people would also put little ear amulets at the base of the temple wall so that the god had extra ability to hear them.
Like surround sound, basically.
Yeah, surround sound, yeah.
Wow. So all right, before we get into the inner chapel. So let's say, for instance, I'm somebody who wants to be a practitioner. Let's say I want to be a Kemetic priest, right? And I want to create this sacred space for the gods. And I happen to have, let's say a brownstone, right?
A what?
A brownstone, like a 3-story brownstone.
What's a brownstone? Oh, apartment building, okay.
Yeah, apartment. We call it a brownstone here.
Okay.
So could I use that if I build this tenemos around my apartment building?
It's possible, but it's exceptionally difficult.
And why would that be?
First of all, the idea of the brownstone being made out of ritually pure materials is pretty rare.
So what materials would I need for the building itself? I mean, I know we're going back and forth here, but
natural stone and small amounts of wood and most metals. Okay, those are ritually pure materials.
So regular concrete won't suffice.
Regular concrete will not suffice. Regular concrete's not ritually pure.
Okay.
Fired brick is not ritually pure.
Okay. So we're looking here in the shrine. Oh, by the way, how much would that cost to build that kind of a fencing?
The fencing itself is not terribly expensive. I believe it comes out to about $20,000.
Okay.
And most churches would pay for that. And the fencing itself does not have to be made out of ritually pure materials.
Oh, okay.
So you can easily get away with, say, chain link fence.
Wow. Okay.
So that's one of the budget items you can get away with when you do your own temple cult.
Oh,
Chain link fence is perfectly acceptable.
all right, so we got a shot, guys. We got a shot.
Yeah.
All right.
Because
So,
in the ancient world, they would use sometimes mud brick
okay.
for the temenos wall. So the mud brick's not a richly pure material, but you could use it on the outskirts.
Oh, okay.
So anything where you don't require a high level of ritual purity, you can get away with substandard materials.
Mm.
So you could get away with substandard materials on your slaughterhouse. It's not a ritually pure area anyway. You're killing animals in it.
Right.
Just like the name describes.
Right.
Your bakery is not ritually pure. So that can also be made out of mud brick. No problem there. Or whatever you have handy.
Right. So again, just to be clear, but in order for me to be accurate, I would need both a bakery and a slaughterhouse in my temple complex.
Yes, you need both a bakery and a slaughterhouse.
Okay. So
and a constant supply of animals to slaughter.
Right. So here
which may raise the ire of the health department.
So we have a close up of this diagram here. The inner court, the great seat, the inner chapel. Is the shrine anywhere in here?
There's 2 shrines in there.
Okay, explain.
Okay. You've got a shrine at the very back. See that compartment at the very, very back of the temple of the inner chapel?
Yes.
Okay, there'd be a naos there, a stone shrine there, which weighs many, many tons, where you'd put the god to sleep at night. Okay? That's his bed. That's the bed he buy for the gods. Okay? Then you have the great seat, which is a shrine inside a shrine. So think of it kind of like a Matryoshka doll. Those Russian dolls that you open the doll and there's a doll inside. Kind of same concept. So with the great seat, you actually have a temple inside of a temple. And it's got a roof and everything.
So can we were talking about this before we went on. Can one have a shrine outside of a temple complex?
Yes, you can. But you can't fulfill all the duties and all the expectations of the divinity with just a shrine.
So if I was a Kemetic high priest, I would need more than just a shrine in order for me to do my duties.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no doubt. Even small temples in Egypt that were full temples had everything I'm describing. Okay? Like the one at Deir el-Medina is not a terribly big temple. And it was a temple dedicated to Amenhotep I. And yet, it has the full arrangement of what we would expect of a New Kingdom temple to be like. It's not just a shrine.
Right. So if someone was to come and say that they are a Kemetic high priest of a shrine, but that's all they have, and
then they're not a high priest.
Then they're not a high priest.
They're not a high priest.
Okay.
To be a high priest, you have to have a full temple cult.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
Because it's even built into the name. High priest. That means you've got other priests. And usually you have several ranks of priests. Okay? We would call, for example, the high priest, he would be a lector priest. Okay? What would be called a hemnecher, a high priest. That's a lector priest. Underneath him, second in command, is the sem priest. And he's the guy that wears the leopard skin. He's the only guy that's allowed to wear an animal product inside the temple. Okay. Everyone else has to wear plant-based clothing. So no leather Nikes. You can't bring that in your temple. You can't bring that leather jacket into your temple. You can't bring a piece of pizza into the temple.
Right.
It's very, very strict as to what's allowed inside the temple and how it's brought in. In the case of clothing, the only piece of animal clothing allowed is the leopard skin, and that was for the Sem priest only.
And
Everyone else had to wear clean linens and papyrus slippers.
Wow. Okay. So if you don't have papyrus slippers, you cannot even enter.
No.
Wow.
No, you have to have your slippers have to be papyrus.
Wow. Okay.
And they would make them themselves. This is part of the craft of being a priest. Is you would make yourself slippers as part of your daily duties.
Right.
You would go, you would the night before you'd make your slippers, you'd have your clean linens all ready to go. In the morning, you'd go down to the riverbank. You'd shave off all your hair. Okay. You would ritually bathe. Then you'd take natron, wash your mouth out with natron and spit it out. And then you put on the new clothing.
So a priest, especially a high priest, he could not do the duties of a priest if he had a goatee such as yourself.
No. Facial hair is not permitted for priests.
And why is that the case?
Because it's ritually impure. Because it was believed to carry lice.
Okay. So, all right. So we're jumping around a lot, but the next thing I want to talk about that you spoke about is the deposit.
Oh, the foundation deposit.
The foundation department.
Ooh.
So let's talk about. Let's start small. And then we'll get to one of the major deposits, right? So let's start small. So why is that a thing? Why would you need to? Well, first of all, what is that?
Okay, a foundation deposit is a cache of items that are buried underneath the temple to show the gods you're really serious about worshiping them. Okay, that's what they are.
Right.
So it's a really important component of this. Here's the thing: the Egyptian gods don't give you stuff for free. Okay, they don't help because they like you or care about you. It's not a religion for cheapskates.
Very transactional.
It's very transactional. In fact, we find this concept even in, say, the way rituals are done, called reciprocal economy. Okay? Let's say you want the god to give you bread. What do? You give the god bread. And he takes that bread and he multiplies it. So he's amplifying whatever you give him. You want peace? You give him a little peace. You want victories? You give him a victory. He multiplies whatever you give him.
Wow.
So if you want the gods to bless you and to put their rubber stamp on your temple, you need a really, really generous foundation deposit to show them you're serious. Think of it this way. It's kind of like you go to a bank and you ask for money. You ask for money from the bank, and the bank goes, "Wait, you don't have an account with us. Who are you?
Right.
You got nothing in your accounts. You got to put something in before you get something out."
Wow.
The Egyptian gods are the same way. You want something out, you got to put something in.
Right. Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
And it's a very expensive down payment for their blessing.
So speaking of that, so I found a few things that have been found in these deposits. Right. So this is like food offerings, pottery, stone vessels. This is found at the Valley Temple at how you said it? Is it Meidum?
Meidum
in the Old Kingdom. Here's some more pottery vessels. ointment jars, beads, food offerings, model tools, miniature pottery.
Yeah.
This is found at the temple of Amenhotep II.
Mm-hmm.
This is a recreated foundation deposit at the temple of Queen Hatshepsut at the Bari, right?
Diyarbakir, yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned this in your video.
The toad treasure, yeah, it's very
treasure.
famous. Yeah.
So these are gold.
Those are silver.
These are silver.
Okay, those cups are silver.
Okay.
Now, silver back then was half the price of gold. So silver was more expensive back then than it is today. By a large margin.
Okay. Then they found these votive objects again with Queen Hatshepsut. Again, going back
ceremonial
to the
adzes, yeah.
Todd treasure. You got zoomorphic.
Those would be the lapis beads.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's and lapis is not cheap. Lapis has never been cheap.
Right.
Now,
and they get this in Mesopotamia, right? The lapis
they
lazuli.
get this from Afghanistan.
Okay.
Okay, so it has to come by very, very long trade routes. So this is an import. Okay, lapis is an import, and it's an expensive import. Turquoise they could get closer to home.
Right.
But lapis, they had to bring that in from afar. In fact, it's so difficult to get that the amount of supply they had was nowhere close to the demand. In fact, when you look at, say, the Mask of King Tut, it's supposed to be inlaid with lapis. We find parts of it where it is inlaid with actual lapis, but other parts of it have been substituted with blue glass because they didn't have enough lapis.
The guys wouldn't mind the Fugazi blue glass as opposed to
But glass was also an expensive commodity to produce too. So you could get away with that.
Okay. Cool. So all right. So we know you gotta make this fence. We know that you have to put this deposit of various valuable things. Now there's this one particular deposit that gets real interesting, and yeah, I don't know if anybody's going to be doing.
You mean the human capital?
Human capital.
Human capital.
So, what are we alluding to, Dr. Falk? Like, what else would you have to deposit into the temple?
You would have to deposit underneath the temple. How do I even put this delicately? A human sacrifice.
Human sacrifice. So you would have to
kill
somebody and throw them under the temple.
Yes.
Okay. So.
And it can't just be any somebody.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that. Like, who would be a candidate for such a high honor?
Normally, this would be a soldier that was taken captive through the spoils of war. Okay? Somebody who's usually young, big, strong, hard to capture. Okay? So, it wouldn't be a woman. It could be a slave because a lot of ex-soldiers were turned into slaves.
Right.
Okay? But it wouldn't just be your regular commoner.
Right.
Okay? So somebody ex-military, essentially.
So we know historically, right, that Kemet have gone to war with Nubia, right?
They've gone to war with Nubia. They've gone to war with Libya. They went to war with Canaan.
Right.
They had a pretty regular supply when they needed it for this purpose.
So it wouldn't be far-fetched to say that in some of these temples might be buried some Nubians underneath.
Correct. Yeah, that's a real possibility. Especially during times when, say, hegemony expanded more into Nubia than, say, Canaan. Or like, for example, during the Middle Kingdom, you'd see this.
Wow. So, I mean, for us today, we look at that and, we'll clutch our pearls. Like, how could you do that? Was it controversial back then, or this was just part of the course?
Oh no! This was part of the course. This was a king bringing back proof of a victory. He's bringing back proof of a victory. He's presenting the proof of life to the god. He's doing the deed, and then that's getting buried underneath the temple as the perpetual reminder to the god that the king brought back a victory. And now the god's expected to give king more victories.
Does the
subdue those vile Cushites?
Yeah, the wicked Cush. Wretched Cush.
Wretched Cush. Vile too. You could use vile as well.
Oh man, I was about to ask you something. I just love. Yeah. So. I forgot.
It can't be a volunteer.
It has to be someone who's captured in war.
It has to be an unwilling victim.
Oh, the Manenta Stele.
Mm-hmm.
When he's grabbing his the guys by the hair, is that something like that? Is that him offering these guys to the gods, or that's something totally different?
Sometimes yes. It is. This is often the way it would be dispatched. Okay, so they would grab them by the hair with one hand and smash them in the head with a mace in the other.
Would the king do this, or like who would do the killing? Actually, yeah, who would do the killing?
Usually the king.
Wow.
The king would make a special trip just for this purpose.
Of course.
Well, the king was required to go to every temple of Egypt once a year anyway. That was part of his duties. Part of his duties is he would make this trip down the Nile once a year to visit every temple.
Right.
And if a new temple happened to be constructed at that time, that's when you have party time.
And the pharaoh would be considered. I mean, you had, of course, each of these temples would have a high priest, but he's the high priest.
The king is the high priest of every cult in Egypt.
Right.
Higher than the high priest. Every temple has a high priest, and over them is the king.
Right. So again, right?
So your high priest, your Harry Tep Netcher, he would be basically the. You can kind of think of him as sort of the stand-in for the king when the king wasn't there.
Like the vice president?
Yeah, kind of like the vice president.
Right. Okay.
Every temple has a vice president.
So, is there a workaround? Let's say I for some reason I didn't want to do it, or that we haven't had any wars recently. Can I get away not killing someone and putting in the temple? I would have to. In order for the temple to be considered official, I had to. There's no workaround. Wow. Okay.
No, this is we find these reliefs at practically dozens of temples. I mean, dozens of temples we find these reliefs. Okay, they're everywhere. They're ubiquitous.
Wow.
I mean, it used to be until the 1990s. It was thought, oh well, okay, maybe this was just a ceremonial, something, a picture put on the wall, kind of like a voice offering, where they didn't really expect that to happen. The excavation at the Temple of Mut kind of changed all that. The Temple of Mut was really unusual in a lot of ways because it was the first time archaeologists really got the opportunity to lift up every stone and look underneath. We don't normally get to do that with temples. Stonework is usually already intact. We don't want to disturb it to break it or to go around it. So there usually has to be a pretty compelling reason to lift up every stone. In the case of the Temple of Mut, it had such bad flooding damage. Basically, the Temple of Mut is below the water table. below the water table. So you go there today, you better have pretty waterproof shoes, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because you step on the sand, it just goes down into water.
Wow.
But this had the effect of lifting up and moving out of place all the paving stones. So the excavators pretty much had to move the stones to put them back into place. Well, if you're going to move the stones, you're going to look under them anyway.
Right.
And excavate.
Since I'm already here,
Yeah, since you're already there.
Right.
We don't normally get to do that with temples.
Wow.
So when it was found, this young male skeleton, with its hands and feet tied behind its back, oh yeah, we know it happened.
Wow. So again, in 2024, if I wanted to really be an authentic practitioner, I would have to go to a temple in which someone was murdered and their body was put in the foundation of this temple.
Yeah. Although there are, to be honest, too, there are some Catholic churches where that happened, but that's not consistent with biblical Christianity.
Right. This is true. So as you see, guys, there's a lot going on here if you really want to go this route.
Oh yeah.
It's not it's not enough to put an ankh around your neck and a dashiki and say hotep, right? It's a little bit more involved than that.
A little more involved, yes. Right. At least if you want to make the gods of Egypt happy, like keep them satisfied, hetep, as it were, like what their ancestors supposedly did.
Mm-hmm. Now, of course, in Christianity, we don't have these issues. And why is that? Well, 1 Corinthians 3, verse 16, do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's spirit dwells in you? So I don't have to build anything. I don't need special stones or a special fence. I am the special temple.
Or a slaughterhouse.
Or a bakery. Though, having a bakery.
And you don't have to bring live cattle through the front gate of your church property.
Right.
Take it to your slaughterhouse, kill it, gut it, drain it of blood, and salt the meat.
Right.
You don't have to do that.
And you don't have to worry about, which type of priest. Is it the wet priest, the elected priest? Because in 1 Peter 2, verse 9, but you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. We're all priests.
Mm-hmm.
All of us.
Yeah.
And you can have a goatee like Dr. Falk and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. You'll be accepted.
And you get to keep your eyebrows.
There you go. And of course, if we're talking about sacrifice, Hebrews 10, verse 12, but when Christ had offered for all time a single sacrifice for sins, he sat down at the right hand of God, waiting from that time until his enemies should be made a footstool for his feet. For by a single offering, he has perfected for all time those who are being sanctified. This is the ultimate deposit.
Yeah.
But unlike those deposits, he came out of the deposit in 3 days.
Yes.
Right? So
Christ covers it all.
He covers it all.
He covers it all. He covers the debt for sin. He covers the goodwill towards God. We don't have to buy God's goodwill.
Right.
Christ has paid for that.
Right.
In ancient Egypt, you gotta buy your way to the God's favor. All of these rituals are there to purchase favor.
But yet, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. But unlike Christianity, it's not all covered in Egypt. And at the end of it, even after you've done all of that ritual, okay, even after all of that ritual, you still have to perform magic spells in the afterlife.
Right, just to get through. Right.
Just to get through.
Yeah.
To absolve you of your sins. None of this covers your sins. None of this ritual that Egyptians do covers your wrongdoing. None of it covers your sins. Absolutely none of it does. All of this does is get you favor with the gods. None of it absolves you of wrongdoing. You still got to take care of that in the afterlife.
Right. That's where these negative confessions come into play.
That's where the negative confession comes in. The negative confession is a magic spell that just, through magic, wipes away all the wrongdoing to make your heart lighter on the scale.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so again, if you're gonna leave Christianity for this, please count the cost. Because if you want a temple, we have a temple. You're the temple. You want to be a priest? You could be a priest. You don't have to kill anyone because the Savior died for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, very early on, these same people of ancient Kemet, when they got the gospel, they embraced it quickly.
Oh, yeah.
For the reasons why Dr. Falk just said, it's like, wait a minute, I could get my sins forgiven without casting a spell. He's willing. The true and living God came down and died for me so that I could be with him. Yes, please. I'll take some of that. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So,
oh, yeah. Amongst, say, Egyptians who lived in the Nile Delta, yeah, they instantly gravitated to Christianity because it was so much easier. Okay. And it also promised a relationship with God. There's no relationship here with the gods of Egypt. It's a business transaction.
Wow. That's amazing. So
and the fact is you could do all this ritual of ancient Egypt and the gods could still say no.
No guarantee.
No guarantee.
Wow.
It's a stochastic thing. It's well, we're doing all of this so to sort of put the balance in, to put the balance in our favor. But we're not guaranteed that we'll actually get the favor of the god.
Right. We're shooting our shot. We're going to see, we're going to run up the flagpole, see everybody salutes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Like, and then you also have to decide, well, which gods? Because there's not just one in Egypt that can determine your destiny.
Mm. And depending on what period of Egypt, too, right? I mean...
Oh, yeah. There's different criteria for different times.
Right.
Now, I focus primarily on New Kingdom Egypt. Because that's sort of when everyone talks about say, the height of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
That's its very pinnacle.
Mm.
New Kingdom Egypt is its pinnacle. It's its apex.
Mm.
It's never the same as it's never the same before or after.
Right.
That's the height of Egyptian religion, the height of Egyptian hegemony.
Mm. Mm. So here you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going to leave Christianity for an actual comedic experience, be prepared to commit homicide.
Yeah, homicide. That's just the beginning. This is only the beginning. Oh, we're not done yet. Oh, there's more.
Wow.
There's a lot more. Oh, because all your furnishings have to be ritually pure.
The who?
All your ritual furnishings have to be ritually pure and the best quality.
Right.
So you better have your gold covered tables. Where is your gold covered offering tables?
Mm.
Where are your gold barks?
Mm.
These barks were so heavy they had to be carried by 6, 8, sometimes 24 people.
Right.
Because they were weighed down with gold cladding and precious stones. Where is your 12 to 18 inch idol of the god made of electrum, which is today 14 karat gold?
Wow.
That's your idol. That's where your god lives. The flesh and bone of the flesh of the gods is gold. You can't just use some sort of something you whittled from pine for this.
Right.
It has, plastic cast, resin cast isn't going to cut it here.
So this is very high-end stuff here we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, nothing but the best. They won't accept anything less than the best. This is one of the reasons why you see so much of these particular... And it works into the mythology and the theology. So then that... It's not a mistake that when they find the central idols of these temples, it's gold, silver, or bronze. It's not an accident. It's that these were considered to be ritually pure materials and synonymous with the flesh and bone of the god itself. And we even find ritual texts to that degree. They'll sometimes say that the flesh of the gods was gold and his bones were iron.
Wow. So
there's a reason why they made these gods out of gold. It wasn't just because it was precious. There was a deeply held religious theological belief that for the god to be comfortable in his own skin,
right,
and stick around, you had to present an image of him that not only looked like him, but was of the same materials that his natural form would be in, which is gold.
They would imitate his ontology. They were trying to imitate the ontology of the... Okay.
Yeah. There's a story called The Shipwrecked Sailor, which is a fictional account of a sailor that gets shipwrecked on an island somewhere. And he encounters a snake god out there. And this thing's like 20 feet tall. But it is skin of gold and eyes of lapis. This is how the Egyptians conceived the gods were in the afterlife. So that when should you make it through the duat, in one piece, no guarantee there, you were apotheosized so that you would have skin of gold and basically bones of iron. Just like the gods.
Wow.
So that would be your final form in the afterlife. So the expectation is if you're worshiping the god here, you have to worship him in his form.
And his form costs a lot of money.
Oh, yeah. Because they don't allow... There's no hollow gods in Egypt.
Wow. Everything is Madison Avenue, Park Avenue type. Right.
Nothing but the best, baby.
Gucci and Louis. Right. That's great. So Dr. Falk, so before we wrap things up, if you want to talk to people about future endeavors, events, streams that you're about to do, please plug away.
Okay, well, we're always producing Monday videos. Working still on getting the proposal out for the book on the Exodus that we're doing. We still are planning on that trip to Egypt in March.
Okay.
Hopefully they'll stop killing each other over there. Because that does drive away tourism.
Yeah, that kind of hinders, right, tourism, right.
The thing is, the situation over there always changes on a dime. It changes on a dime. And while Egypt is not directly affected by any of this, it does scare people away.
Sure.
Absolutely. So we're hoping that they are just going to calm down soon. And if it calms down, it'll calm down quickly. So that's kind of what we're hoping for at this point.
I'm definitely looking forward to that Exodus book. That sounds really, really.
That's going to be awesome, but I have to get that proposal out, and it just takes me so long to get that out.
Right. Now, I'm looking forward to that.
It'll be great. It'll be like the other one in that it's going to be full of pictures, a lot of data and arguments that you probably haven't seen anywhere else. So we're really looking forward to doing that.
Absolutely, and of course we're gonna want you to come here and talk about the book, and I'm sure there'll be a book tour. And actually, I know what you really want to do. I know what you really want to do, because you're gonna want to do the anti-patterns of evidence. That's what you're gonna want to do.
Oh, am I?
Knowing you, you would love to do that. Like, you want to do the
anti-patterns of evidence, huh?
Yeah, real patterns, the actual patterns,
the real patterns of evidence, huh?
Oh man, this is good. This is good. All right, guys. So you heard it here first. If you're gonna leave the church, if you're gonna leave Christianity for this, get a huge bank loan and an alibi, because boy, you're gonna be in trouble.
Yep.
And with that, we out. Dr. David Falk, BK Apologists. We out. Peace.